This continuing with this Bach Prelude from the Well-Tempered clavier from measure 9, 4 bars, 9, 10, 11, and 12. They're rather easy except for the last 12th measure. So let's go ahead. Your first chord, paraphrase of course, is built upon the 6th note of the major scale, 8, 7, 6, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's minor. This is duplicates, just take it out. 1, a step and a half is a minor third. And a step below the root up here is the minor 7th. Minor triad on the submedian, 6. Now, this is interesting because on the 2nd degree of the C major scale, and it's usually minor, but it's been altered to a major third here. Okay, now, this major third and this minor 7th, 1, 2, 3, and whole step below the root, creates a dominant identity. Identity means something you can hear, that you can identify as a dominant chord, a dominant sound, shall we say. You could put in the 5th there, you could put it down here. I'll stop for a moment and talk about definitions again. I might have mentioned it before, but I'll go through it once more. Just make sure it's understood. There's 2 definitions of dominant. No, there aren't. That's the problem. There's only one definition of the dominant. The dominant is the 5th note of any scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the tonic, that's the dominant. That's the tonic. 5 notes below the tonic is the subdominant. 5 down, 5 up. It's always 5 when you're talking about dominant. Also, the subdominant could be just a note below 5 instead of way down here. Okay, now that's it. You don't find any other definition. Somewhere along the way, we've got to get into all dictionaries, especially music dictionaries, the second definition of dominant as being an identity. Something that you can hear, something that you can identify. And identify by its sound and by its characteristic intervals. Now, you've got a major third, so we know that's a major triad. And we know that that's a minor 7th. So you got a major third and a minor 7th. That has the sound, the quality of a dominant, regardless of what key you're in. You're in the key of C, and that's a supertonic. But what if you were in the key of G? That's a dominant. What if you were in the key of F? That would be the subdominant of F. So, you know, that kind of thing. You can hear a dominant. You can understand how it sounds. You can identify it as a sound. And it must have an identifier, which nobody will give it, but I do, and that's X, the letter X. The reason X is chosen is that my teacher in New York, Johnny Mahegan, he taught jazz at the Juilliard School, and I didn't go to Juilliard, I went to Manhattan School of Music, but I studied at his studio in New York. He lived in, he's passed away, but he lived in Connecticut, but his studio was in New York. And when I called the number that was listed in the New York phone book, I asked for John, is Mr. Mahegan in? And a woman says, no, he lives in Connecticut, but this is his New York studio, and I'm his assistant. And I said, well, I'd like to talk to you. So that was the beginning of that. But anyway, I got hold of his 4 volumes on jazz improvisation. The first book had all these X's. and I could not understand what on earth has he got X's all over the place for. He didn't explain it in the books. But after a while, it was obvious that he was talking about 5x, dominant with an X, not a 5/7. 5/7 is a number, and that indicates the fifth note of the scale. All right, that's a dominant, a chord built upon the fifth note of the scale. That's a chord also built upon the fifth note of the scale. That's another chord built upon the fifth note of the scale. That's another chord built upon the fifth note of the C scale. But this identity of a dominant is coincidental that it is also built upon the fifth note of the scale. But it's a dominant because it has the major third, the minor seventh, and you can identify it as a dominant. This could be a dominant in the key of D flat major. What would be in the key of D flat? 1, 2, 3, the augmented fourth. A dominant on the augmented fourth. You see, it doesn't matter where it is, it's the sound of it. It's this identity of a dominant. So, here we go. So, let's get back to it. Submediate minor, supertonic dominant, major on the dominant. Now, if we go to the next chord here, this presents a little bit of a problem because there's no root here. What note would you choose as the root? There is no note that you can choose as the root. It just isn't there. So when you have this chord here, you can add this note here. You can add. Now, in this chord, you can take any one note of a diminished seventh chord and lower it by one note, and you got a dominant. So this is a dominant minor 9, and then there's your root. But this is this E flat dominant. This chord right here is an E flat dominant without its root, because this ninth then can resolve into its root. You could take this as the minor ninth, which resolves into its root, and you have an F sharp dominant, which then resolves into a B. This could be the minor ninth of A dominant, so it's an A dominant, the minor seventh, the major third, the minor ninth, resolve that minor ninth into its A dominant. This is A dominant, minor 9, and this is A dominant, which then resolves to either major or minor. Alright, now then, this, if you regard this B flat that's in the music as the minor ninth, then it could be resolved. But it doesn't resolve because it goes on to D minor. That's probably a tough concept for you to understand. But you can take the whole diminished chord and regard the B flat as the minor ninth of A. A goes to what on the key circle? A goes to D. So there's your verification. There's your justification of that diminished seventh chord as being the dominant minor ninth, the A dominant, dominant minor ninth on the submediate, leading to the supertonic, which is minor then in that particular case. You're just going to have to work with that a little bit and see what you can work out on it. Now, as far as improvising on it, well, all right, A minor. See what I did there? You can add the A if you like. Let's see if we can do something else here. once more. A minor. There's your chord aid. You can get some sort of nice progressions out of that. But you've got to be able to... Now there it is. A to D. See, now then, the only thing about this is that A goes into a D with the minor third on the bottom. But that will be the next 4-bar phrase. Anyway, see if you can understand this concept of the diminished 7th chord having a missing root. And it must also then make some kind of sense as in regards to what chord follows what chord within the normal circle, key circle, because the key circle is the basic syntax of music. So C goes to F, goes to B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, or F sharp, B, E, A, D, G, and C is your key circle. And it must have some kind of logic there. So A goes to a D. A, D, G, C, that sort of thing. Okay, anyway, work with it, and we'll cover the next video in just a moment. See you in a bit.